in the interest of sharing things about. It's my turn to do our intro. So welcome back, guys. Welcome to Zero to Brilliance, the podcast where Richie was and myself bring you inside, behind the curtain to all the duct tape and balsa wood that is a startup, taking something from 0 to 1, from idea to market, whatever you want to call it, building a business. In case, if you've got to level episode 3, you know by now that we don't sugarcoat anything. We're just kind of making this up as we go along. And if you've just discovered us, welcome. Strap in. It's going to be an interesting ride, both for you and us. We just chat about all the stuff that we've been doing to try and bring this incredible idea to life and try and find ways of helping people. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in and like and subscribe. I don't know. Welcome back to the channel or whatever reply normally comes in. Richie, how are you boys?
Yeah, pretty good.
Anything exciting happening in Sydney this week, Richie?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Blues took home a victory on
Oh,
Wednesday.
we'll just cut that part out. We won't talk about that.
Very convincing victory, but based on history, it's always Queensland that wins up back in Brizzy. So, not looking forward to it, but let's see what happens.
Okay. I don't know what you're talking about. It's obviously some weird Sydney thing that nobody pays any attention. I think it happened down in Melbourne and nobody cares. How are you, bud?
Yeah, good. This week was a pretty good week. So, yeah, I don't know nothing much happened personally. But yeah, good week. A very exciting week for our company, and a good kick-off, which we can probably talk about now. Well, how about you, Matt? How was your week? What? Yeah.
Up and down around the grounds. I think I'm pretty sure I went full beautiful mind on a pivot table trying to do some of our survey data, like in a dark hole, and it just broke me. So I've gone back to doing it super simple. So we'll talk about more of those results more later. Excuse me. But yeah, bottom line is I'm not a Excel wizard, and I have a lot of more respect for people who are. And yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on later on. But we had a great chat on earlier in the week about launch strategy and how to bring this. And it was a really good convo because it unearthed a bunch of topics we hadn't discussed. And I really enjoyed that. So yeah.
It's good talk.
But it's freezing up here in Brizzy at like 16 degrees. I'm fighting hard with the Troppo shirts, but it's getting hard.
That's a good question, actually. Like for random people, Matt, why the shirt? Like every Friday you're wearing this shirt. Why? What's going on?
Let's be clear, it's not just this shirt. I have an elaborate selection of tropical shirts that has taken me years to build up. I would challenge, why not? Like Troppo Fridays every Friday. Like, Friday is weekend junior, Saturday junior, Thursday is Friday junior. Like rolling in, getting used to it. There's nothing. It's also hard to be like in a bad mood when you're wearing a Troppo shirt, I reckon. Like, It's very hard. You look past yourself, see them really, ooh, I like it. I like the tropical. So I've also got some other ones that are like winter Tropos, which are basically they have no breathability at all, which are excellent when it is cold. So, but this is it's a bit of a spicy number. It's one bit of a prawn and a scorpion mix there. Sorry, a lobster and a scorpion. One of my preferred ones.
Do you have Christmas Tropos?
I have 2 Christmas Tropos.
Yeah.
Just one. Warwick.
I think we've seen it before.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen it before. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because life is better in Troppo, mate.
So yeah, a little bit about Matt. There you go. That's good. Well, yeah, like Matt chatted about, we'll be chatting today. We'll be chatting about. We could probably chat about the launch strategy and our meeting that went around that, and the plan of going into the meeting and how it pivoted. And then we'll also chat about how we got our first listing, which is pretty exciting. And potentially bringing on a new co-founder as well, because we're sort of going through that process this week. But let's kick off with how we got our first listing, because I reckon start off with some
huge
news.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've been, kind contemplating how we launch. Should probably go into that launch chat as well for quite a bit. And one of the things was, well, do we know anyone who's selling a house right now? I'm lucky enough to have a mate who's literally in the process of selling his house. So I gave him a call and said, "Can you, or do you want to sell your house through Brilliant or list it on Brilliant?" And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, right. That's good." I think I mentioned this on the last episode that he had to call his agent and check whether it's all legal and all that kind of stuff. And his agent couldn't do anything about it. So I'll probably catch up with, because it's like, it's in the end, it's my mate's choice. It's his house that he's selling. And so he's going to list it on our site, and we're not even live in the area yet. So we've got a bit of work to actually do before he can list it. But it's pretty exciting to get your first customer. And it's exciting to get your first customer before you've actually launched, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. And so that's pretty exciting. And then another strategy, another one as well. Because I stayed with my brother 2 nights ago in Melbourne, he's looking for a house to buy, and so I said to him, "What if we launch in the areas where you're looking to buy, and then you can be a buyer's user straight away, because then we can roll out our launch plan for that specific area." And so is one thing that I wanted to chat to you guys about. Actually, it's like maybe we should put on Facey, or like in our personal network group, is anyone, if we can find anyone who's like that, who's like either selling their house now or about to sell, just in our personal group, or anyone who's like actually actively looking to buy, and then we can go through the buyer's journey with them as well, which is pretty good. And also obviously the investigator's journey as well. Like if we can find all three of people that we know, then we can probably get some pretty decent feedback and some like, because with a product, getting the feedback loop short is one of the most important things to iterating over and then finding the correct product market fit. And the difficult thing about what we're trying to do is it's a long process between getting that feedback loop. Like it's a slow feedback loop in terms of like when they actually list their house to when it sells. Like we're talking like 60 days on average, probably, or 45 to 60 days. So the feedback loop of the whole process is quite slow. So it'd be really good to get people that we know that can constantly just touch base, and it'll just help us, I think. What do you guys think?
I like the idea, especially on the buyer side. If we can target your brother's sort of like location that he's looking for, I think that's a good start. And good work on the first listing. That's huge news.
It's massive.
Yeah, that's massive. Well done. I think it depends on. I think the cycle of feedback is different for the 3 different user groups. So like what we've identified as kind of what we call investigators. There's people who are maybe just, they're not in any rush, but they're kind of keen to have a bit of a sniff around. That could be 6, 12 months. Like that could be a very long cycle of I guess, feedback. But then also you've got the sellers and the buyers should be much shorter. But there are obviously multiple factors that could affect those as well, around location, supply, pricing expectations. So, but it's certainly good. I think I definitely think kind of chaining it together, being that you're using your mate for the seller, and someone who's a buyer, and then trying to launch in that space where we know we've kind of got potential. I don't want to say demand, but interest, let's say. So I think that gets us kind of momentum, or allows us to build on that momentum. So I think that's a really good plan.
Yeah. And it's also really, I was thinking about this when my mate called me or messaged me and was like, yeah, it's all good to go. It's really validating when your friends believe in your business, don't you think? Like I don't know, I've had businesses before where I've like spoken to my friends and they're like,
it's not going to work.
And they're like, not going to work, which is like a really kick in the guts. Like I remember my last startup, Crowd Delivery, where we delivered groceries. One of our friends, our family friend, or one of my friends, they ordered through us multiple times, and they did it just to support me. And I just found that so, like, I respect them so much now because of that, because they actually like wanted to give it a crack, if that makes sense. They wanted to believe in what I was trying to do, which is really nice. I don't know. It's pretty good. It's a bit of a pat on the back, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that concept. There's a guy, Noah Kagan. I think I'm maybe saying his name wrong. But he did AppSumo. He used to work at Facebook and a few other things. He's got this book. I think it's called The $1 Million Weekend or something. They're basically trying to start a business and launch it in 48 hours. And his concept is getting three people to give you money. Whether it's your mum, your brother, your auntie, it doesn't really matter. Because the fundamental concept is that momentum, that confidence, and using those initial people who are in your inner circle, like you're talking about your friends or whatever, who are doing it. Like in the early days, it's extremely unlikely that your solution is going to be the best out there. Like that's almost next to none, unless you're serving something that doesn't exist. But even if you are serving and you're a unicorn in the first space, it's not going to be a perfect solution. So having that kind of what would you call it? Social capital with them, or emotional capital, allows them to be a bit more forgiving, gets you that kind of hump. But I also think it gives us, or gives anybody in that space, like confidence that, or maybe I can do this, and you kind of roll on until eventually you get to that point where you're selling to just randoms, and they're like, you've got that kind of both data and feedback, but also confidence in the product and service you're offering. We just have to be too careful, and I don't think it would happen with houses, but like the people aren't just doing it out of like, well, I'll do it for my mate. Like it's a crap idea, but I'm doing it. So
yeah,
but I don't think that's going to happen with what we're doing. So
yeah,
it's not pity or anything.
They definitely are. But yeah, so that's amazing news. So which is awesome. Got our first customer before we launched. So for all those people out there saying, "Oh, this won't work," suck it. It just worked. So
well, look. I don't know if we can jump to suck it. It doesn't work, but that's where it works. But I think we can kind of say, "Aha, we've won the first battle."
Yeah, we're off. We're out of the gates, but not really, because we haven't actually launched in the area that he could list in. So we've got to do all that sort of stuff first, do all the background work. Okay, to change speeds, the other thing we were going to talk about is our launch strategy, which is sort of on the same path. So, Richie, you can explain what we did on the meeting the other day and how it pivoted.
That launch strategy meeting, that was quite detailed. So I think the main sort of conclusions we got to that was we're going to start off small and niche, as opposed to our big grand plan of obtaining as many listings as possible in a quick amount of time. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways we learned from that sort of strategy meeting. I think the next thing we took away from that was trying to find that one or two listings from mates. And now that we've secured that, we've initially got that step. So now that paves a path of trying to find those buyers, which you now mentioned with your brother sort of being kind of a buyer, but that's just only one buyer. We kind of need multiple to kind of see what their user experience is like. But yeah, I think now that we got sort of these pieces together, the next thing is just basically making sure the platform is live and has a couple of listings with the entire strategy. We just need to get the platform live. And once we have the platform live and we can get your mate in and your brother in and kind of see the user journeys, I think we can learn a lot. And I think it will validate our new strategy plan if it works. And if it doesn't, then we just got to tinker around a bit more, iterate, and see what else we can sort of do from there, I think. But I think we've got a good plan.
Yeah. I also found it funny that we started the launch meeting and we're like, this is the plan. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we can launch. And then we kind of went back and went, oh, hang on, we're missing heaps of steps here. We need to go and do all these things first. And so it turned from less about a marketing launch plan to an actual right, what do we actually have to finish before we actually can launch this correctly? Which is a bit of a pivot in a meeting, as you do sometimes when you start talking about something, you go, hang on, but we haven't even done, we're on step 3, but we haven't even done step 1 and 2 yet. So let's go do step 1 and 2.
Yeah. And
then come up with some really good solutions for that as well. How did you find it, Matt? Because you said when we were in the meeting, you weren't keen on one idea, but then after the meeting, it switched you over and you were like, oh, I'm pretty happy about that now. Don't know if we could talk about the specifics, but
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. We're like, cool, we got a product. How do we get it to the people, right? And when we started to dig into that, it was like, well, actually, we got a product, but getting it to the people, as you said, there's a few more steps than we probably, as you start to verbalize and map these things out, you know. Um, and I also think it was good that, like, yeah, I mean, you and I had a difference of opinion on the key element of like how a strategy on of generating listings and whether and what was the value is that, and I didn't understand it and I kind of pushed back. But when we kind of went full loop, and I think even your attitude towards some elements as well around like how does the sale process of this initial launch, when we get our listings, how are we going to um, effectively generate value to a buyer and a seller? And that was what it kind of boiled down to in the different ways. And I feel like we kind of came out of that. It was like how we launch is not exactly how we want to, like, I guess how we start, it's not how we want to finish, for want of a better term. But in order, our goal initially is to get people to our site, understand the product, all of those kind of things. So we have to add value for those initial people, which feeds into a larger strategy around, when the product is kind of standalone and delivering its core purpose. So, but yeah, it was very much, we were like, oh, cool, we'll start having this marketing stuff, but it became much more around like I felt an operational conversation about like, cool. So let's say, using your brother, he wants to, I don't know anything about Melbourne or Victoria, but he wants to launch somewhere down there. What do we actually need to do? Someone says, hey, I love Brilliant, I want to use it, I want to buy a house in blah. How do we stand that up? When we started to dive into that, like, oh, okay, this is a little bit more than we kind of realized. And then there needs to be a value add at almost every step to the buyer and the seller. And what do they look like? And yeah, like I said, like you said, I went full circle, and I think so did you on some elements that, we kind of, it allows us to get our foot in the door and get some momentum. And again, get those kind of initial customers and users, which data is so valuable. But it also helped, I think, reiterate to me that like the three core user groups we've spoken about, that kind of investigator, buyer, and seller, and they're different. They're not all encompassing. Like all three of them, and probably more, to be fair, are user groups or users that are involved in a property transaction. And I think it's important, as long as when we're approaching one of those, in our case, those three that we've chosen to focus on, we're not trying to do all three because they are different. I don't think we can offer, we try and do all things to all people, we'll do nothing to no one. So, yeah.
I was listening to this book called The Cold Start Problem, which I think you guys should listen to as well. It's a pretty good book.
Are you giving us homework, mate, on the pod? Yeah. So we have to. So next week we'll go.
Yeah, and then we'll have a book report next week. So we'll talk about all the characters in it. But it's a really good, and in it, it was saying there's lots of strategies, the cold start thing. So one of them was people come for the tool and they stay for the network. And I found that really interesting because I was like thinking, well, what we're going to provide for the seller and the buyer is a pretty amazing tool, and even the investigator. So from things we've spoken about, to get the investigator in long term, they come for the tool, but then they stay for the network, which is like, obviously the network is the network we're trying to build, right? It's the marketplace. So I thought that was interesting and just food for thought. But
I think the meeting that we had was really good, because I think we had some preconceived or like really biased ways of ideal thinking and how we get the users into our platform. Like we were either like really, like I think we were kind of biased because like our platform's amazing, like it will be amazing, but I think that kind of brought us into thinking that we're just going to get a bunch of listings and users. And I think once we started grounding ourselves in reality and started thinking about it much more clearly and what the processes are currently and what we're sort of competing with and what processes are in place, I think that tailored our solution a bit more better into our new strategy, which I think is going to be much more effective.
Really segues us to the next thing that we're going to chat about, which is potentially bringing on a new co-founder, because we had this launch meeting thinking it was going to be more of a marketing meeting, and then it was an operations meeting, like you said, Matt. But this week we found that we had a knowledge gap, or that skill gap, between, like, the three of us. We know a little bit about marketing, but I wouldn't say I'm a marketer. by any stretch of the imagination, and neither is Matt, neither is Richie. It's like none of us have done this before. So, we've done a little bit of it, but we're not marketing people. And so we found there was a skill gap there. And so we decided to go, put some feelers out and see if we can attract a fourth co-founder to be that marketing head and really allow us to grow the business. But because obviously what we're trying to do to launch it and to be successful, we need to have a good marketing base, and people really need to get the message across correctly. And I found that in the investor pitch decks that I've been sending out and the investor communication. There's that, it's like trying to explain something very simply with the right words. And that's really important. And if a marketer comes on board, then you could change that completely. So how did you guys find the market, or how did you guys find the process this week of, and we won't mention names, but of, chatting to a potential co-founder?
I think it was good. I think the way we sort of did it, where they kind of pitched to us and kind of pitched all their sort of skills and assets, was really good, because then we can kind of think about how does that align with our long-term goals or even our strategy plan and everything. So, and I think based on that meeting, there was a lot of alignment in that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it was good the way it was structured.
A couple of key things that they mentioned during the chat that was clear to me that were blind spots for us around understanding the Australian psyche and the way people kind of operate as Aussies, in comparison, because they've obviously got a bit of international experience into other markets around the world. And the great thing about this digital platform is that it can kind of, it's obviously borderless. You know what I mean? So it was, and one of them, a couple of things which just highlighted to me the importance of having somebody who thinks the way that they did. We've all got pretty strong technical backgrounds and operational and delivery stuff, but and we understand our customers, but there's a nuance to it. I mean, it's like anything, right? At its core, marketing's really simple. It's about finding people to serve and provide who need your product or your service, right? But it's not easy. And a lot of people get those two things often confused. Oh, it's simple and it's easy. Not at all. It's simple is the factual description of the thing, and easy is the subjective execution of it. So it was very clear to me that how easy that person kind of mentioned these topics, and having only spoken to you for a little bit beforehand, and obviously having experience in real estate helps, but just the way that they thought about the ultimate customer, which is the Australian buyer and seller, was really, really interesting. And I thought it was of massive benefit, and a good dose of honesty in there as well. Like I put a few kind of not trap questions, but trick maybe, that I think someone with less experience would have rushed to kind of answer in I've got to come up, I've got to have an answer to this, but this person's clearly experienced and was like, well, no, I don't know the answer yet, and this is why I don't, because I don't shoot from the hip half cocked. I have an approach, and this is how it works. And if that's not for you, cool. If it is, then great. Which I think is important. Like I think there's a big value in going slow so you can go fast. Whereas I think in startups there's this culture attitude, no, hustle, go fast, and then they just trip over themselves and fall on their own face. So I think having somebody, not just one, but multiple people, they kind of say, well, no, this part is important. We need to spend a little bit of extra time, not like governmental speed, like, committees and bureaucracy, but we need to really understand and spend time understanding our market, our competitor, all of those things. Otherwise, you're going to put all of this effort and all of this activity in a direction that's not going to hit the mark.
Yeah, and money.
And I think that's
like,
where we should get in.
And spending lots on marketing, and you're just falling on deaf ears, and and you just lose tens of thousands of dollars. And when you're a bootstrapping startup, which we are currently, then you don't want to lose tens of thousands of dollars because
Mm.
I don't want to waste that much money.
I think our initial excitement got us leading to that way. But then after our recent convos, I think we're a bit more grounded.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, definitely. I found it really interesting that it really came across like an interview, and then we really spoke about like a lot of the technical things, and I was more thinking that when we meet her, then it was going to be more along the lines of like cultural fit and whether she'd be good for the team and all that sort of thing. And it really did go down this like really specific path about really specific questions, and I thought that was like, I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I wonder how. It'd be great to get the person's opinion anyway, and see what they thought about it. So yeah,
I like the style of the meeting.
Yeah. I know. Like, I mean, when you're bringing on a new, it's not like an employee, right? Where you're like, well, employees are pretty easy because it's like, well, we're going to advertise and we're probably going to interview like 20 people and then, and then nut that down to the top 5, or like maybe get 20, 30 resumes, nut it down to the top 5, interview those sort of people. And then, it's very much like the company holds the cards and not the person. Whereas when you bring on a co-founder, I mean, the pitch is for a co-founder, for any co-founder. I mean, it is for you guys as well. It's like, well, you're not going to get paid anything until you actually make it work. So you got to believe in it, and you're going to get like, there's a lot of effort to put in before anything happens. So you really got to believe in it, and you've really got to, you've got to understand that like it's a bit different. Obviously, you get equity, so it's more like for a co-founder, it's more long term. It's like, well, if we make this work, in 5 years' time, I could be like a multi-millionaire. Do you know what I mean? And and basically from the last 5 years, I've been getting paid like $1 million a year on average, but I'm not going to get paid till the 5 years is up. So, and that's the sort of like paradigm when you're thinking about an employee. It's like, well, you're getting paid incrementally along the way, and there might be a bit of if you do have vested shares, it's very, very small, so there might be a payday, but that's like in years to come, but it's only a little payday. Whereas as a co-founder, it's like, well, no, we actually get a fair bit of a payday if we make this work, but we're not going to be getting anything until we reach that. I think of about it like subdividing property as well. It's I mean, I'm going through that now, and it's like, well, it'll probably take 2 years or 2.5 years of just spending money. And then at the end, I'll probably make a fair bit of money from it. Well, I fucking hope so. Otherwise, I'll be a bit pissed off. It's like you got to go through all the council, and you got to go through all the regulations, then you got to build roads, and you got to do all this shit. You can't actually sell your product until all that stuff's done. So you're like really investing a lot of money and time, and then you hope to God that it works out in the end. And when it does work out, you get paid pretty well. Pretty handsomely. And in retrospect, it's like, oh, I probably made like $500,000 a year for the last like 2.5 years, and it's like, yeah, that's okay, but you don't get paid till the end. So it's that different. Instead of going and get a job for like $250K or 200, whatever it might be, you're kind of chipping away, and you just like that ongoing money. So
yeah, just like short-term thinking versus long-term. I think
yeah,
yeah, high risk, high reward as well.
Yeah.
Sort of
and it certainly takes a specific type of person to want to be like a co-founder. And I think the person we spoke to is that type of person. So I think, yeah. But it would be certainly like fill that that skill gap of ours with a lot of experience, which is really exciting.
100%.
I think this one was much better structured. Like
it was.
It felt like it definitely had a bit of a structure and a bit of a flow. And I suppose we haven't talked about what we're doing next week or what we're doing coming up. Well, next week we're going to be obviously prepping the system for the new launch, discussing further about with a potential new co-founder, and looking at what maybe that's it. Preparing to get that first listing.
And next week is really about it's about pushing forward. I always have this concept in my head that a startup is like a car, and if you try to push a car, the first, a lot of effort is spent doing absolutely nothing, and you don't feel like the car's moving at all. And then slowly it starts like moving a little bit, and then it starts moving a lot, and then it starts, oh, okay, cool. Now I've got it moving at a speed where you can drop the clutch and jump start it, and then all of a sudden, it starts moving a bit too quick, and you start, instead of pushing it, you're hanging off the back with your feet on the ground trying to break it, trying to hold it back. So that's where we're at. We're just continually just trying to push this, get this thing push started. So it's exciting. And I'll be definitely reaching out to a lot more investors. That's what I'll be doing.
Hang on a sec. Whoa. You haven't paused. You just kept talking. I thought you were going to pause before you did the wrap up.
I'll do the wrap up, right?
Yeah, but
I wasn't doing the wrap up. I was just saying that this is what I'm doing next week.
I thought we'd start, before we do the wrap up, we'd sign up about what we're doing next week.
And then have the closing credits.
Okay.
So we'll pause and let Woz go.
And I think it talks about the fact that we'd be preparing for like getting that new listing on, more conversations with our co-founder, and investigating what suburbs we might want to launch in based on the stuff with your brother.
Yeah.
Okay. So pause.
So are we starting that again? Or are we doing the final credit now?
No. So what we said, you just, because you said pause, so it's easy to cut, right? But you just kept talking about the car thing, right?
Yeah.
Like there was no gap between our bullshit and the car thing. So it's like, well, where's the gap that you asked for, that you told us to do?
Right.
Then do your spiel about what's coming up, which would be those three things. And then Richie can do the closing credits. Okay?
Okay.
Are we got this? Okay.
Right.
So 3.
So coming up next week, I guess what we'll be working on is, well, you said half of it, and then I just started going off on other things. So, okay. This is the unorganization of like not knowing the fuck we're doing before we're doing it. So I'll probably keep that in actually. Okay, we'll start again. Righto, let's go. So next week will be take 4. So next week we'll be basically trying to work out how to. Well, we'll be a lot more investigating into how to launch, fixing all the things on the website so we can launch, making sure we can launch in my mate's area where his house is listed, and also getting and starting the launch where my brother's looking for a house. So there are some things. We'll be continuing the conversation with the potential co-founder, and hopefully something goes along. Hopefully it goes well there. And what else? I don't know. Just be continuing to reach out to investors as well. So if you're a pre-seed fund, give us a yell. If I haven't already reached out to you, because I highly doubt you even know about this podcast unless I've actually reached out to you already. So if you are listening to this and you are a pre-seed investor, nice work. Thanks for listening. You're awesome. Let's chat more. And it's about it, I think. Is there anything I've missed, guys?
I think that's it.
All right.
Cool, lads.
Sweet.
Anyways, thanks for listening. And remember, lions aren't scared of caterpillars, whatever that means. Congratulations. 70% of you probably didn't even get to hear. But if you're a startup founder, investor, customer, or even a competitor of ours, and you want to stay up to date with our bullshit, hit subscribe to this podcast so you can keep being a fly in this wall. Stay awesome, guys.
Sweet. Oh, sweet. Stay awesome.
Can we pick a different animal thing, please?
Mate, we are going to make this
I keep
lions.
reading it, and like when I read it, it's like...
I feel like the lions aren't scared of caterpillars.
Like,
we will make that a catchphrase.
What am I saying?
I don't know. Well, lads, it was good talking to you. Have
The
a great
lions aren't
weekend,
scared
and we'll catch up next week.
Happy days. Sweet.
See you, boys.
And